In 20 years, mixed martial arts will be the biggest sport on earth. And I say that because the sport is only 30 years old and it's already overtaking major sports leagues around the world. And I think the next generation of humanity will fully embrace mixed martial arts. And we have reality television, The Ultimate Fighter, to thank for that. I remember watching the Forrest Griffin and Stephen Bonner fight live, and there was this sense that something magical was taking place. And to watch two men who we had seen through this reality arc then enter into the cage and give this performance that is still regarded as one of the best fights of all time is one of the reasons why this sport will overtake soccer. Fighting is inherently human. And from the beginning of time, man has engaged in combat to figure out who is the alpha. And as society progresses, more and more people will find the truth and the value of combat, because combat is a very pure thing. There is a definitive winner, there's a definitive loser, and it encapsulates what it is to be human. That we have something we want, there's something in front of us that's blocking it, and what work are we willing to do to make that a reality? So I truly believe as we see more and more people find mixed martial arts through the facets like jiu-jitsu, which is mainstreaming way faster than I ever thought it would. We're going to have more and more people come into this space and understand the beauty that is controlled chaos in the cage. The UFC in the last 20 years since The Ultimate Fighter premiered has blown up in ways that I never thought it would. I didn't think we'd be on ESPN. I didn't think there would be a UFC BJJ. I've trained jiu-jitsu for 15 years, and just watching the way jiu-jitsu has exploded in that time period makes me see the future of MMA as being extremely bright and overtaking most major sports leagues. And why do I say that? Whenever you watch basketball, football, or baseball, the minute any real conflict or confrontation or fight breaks out, that's automatically the most watched aspect of it. Because inherently, these rules and structures that we have in place, they all really kind of fall down to, can you beat me up? Yeah, you can throw the ball through that hoop, that's cool and all. Can you beat me up? Can you physically stop me from doing what I want to do? That nature, it's human. And the more and more people understand that mixed martial arts, while it is brutal and there are, violent knockouts and brutal submissions where limbs are getting broken and people are getting choked to sleep, it's just kind of a microcosm of what life is that you're going to fail, you're going to suffer, you're going to have this happen on the biggest stage ever, and you just learn to regroup and cope with that essence. And that is beautiful, that you're going to struggle, you're going to suffer, you're going to fail, but if you keep going, eventually you may reach your goal or you may not. There's plenty of fighters in the UFC that we never hear of again, and their career, they're a cardio kickboxer or whatever, but that was their path, and the UFC was a proving ground for them to figure out that, hey, maybe they're not the best in the world. And you've seen this in fights. You've had guys who they're on the Contender Series and they don't make the walk. That was the definitive thing, that they weren't willing to step under those bright lights, take on adversity, and take a possible potential butt kicking in front of the entire world. And that's why the UFC will, in the next 20 years, become bigger than soccer, is the raw vulnerability, the fact that you don't need anybody to explain it to you. There's a definitive winner and loser. It doesn't take 20 minutes to score a goal or two. It's going to become more and more culturally acceptable for combat sports to be this thing that we put on a pinnacle, especially after Zufo sold it to the Endeavor Group. And the Endeavor Group is one of the biggest talent agencies in the world. And they produce and create content and they manage global stars. So the fact that they now have a sports league that is their own and it's making $1 billion in revenue just on Paramount, I think we're in the midst of something beautiful in history. And combat sports have existed long before these other sports did, but it was the fact that we couldn't structure it or regulate it that we didn't have what we have now, which is the biggest fight promotion on earth, the UFC, propagating and mainstreaming combat sports. Like I said, UFC BJJ, boxing is making kind of a resurgence, even though boxing never really went anywhere. And if you watched Bobby King Green dominate a professional 19-1 boxer, which just happened on stream this last week, you kind of realize that MMA fighters are the pinnacle of combat sports because they do train all facets. They're wrestling, they're playing jiu-jitsu, they're boxing, they're doing all these things, they're kickboxing. And if you do all of those other things, you're going to be an elite combat athlete. So I'm really excited for the future of mixed martial arts. I never thought the sport would go as far as it has, especially with facets like Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu becoming mainstream and seeing Jiu-Jitsu gyms pop up everywhere, combat sports gyms pop up everywhere. It's going to be the future of sports. I think it's going to be the biggest sport on earth in 20 to 30 years, especially considering it's only been regulated to this extent in the last 20 when Dana White and the Fertitta brothers acquire the rights of the UFC name and then start structuring it and legitimizing the art and the sport. We're only 20 years in. It's making $1 billion a year just on its United States streaming rights. And more and more people will gravitate to this because you've never needed to run and kick a soccer ball to survive. But you may encounter a situation where somebody grabs you and wants to be violent with you. And we've seen people in street fights execute high-level mixed martial arts moves just because they watched it in the UFC. So the UFC has raised the bar of even street fighting because people now have this information, this data of what is effective in these situations. And that's why mixed martial arts are so important, is you're actually arming the next generation and the people around you with skills that will help keep them safe. And the biggest fear anybody has is getting dominated in a real life situation. So that's why mixed martial arts is so great, is because you're gonna now know on a base level, you have a certain amount of safety that you have just by having trained it or watched it. I remember there was this incident in New York where this guy stopped a stabbing on the bus by hitting a takedown and getting a rear naked choke. He's like, I just watch UFC. I don't train. I've absorbed this information enough so that when the situation presented itself, unconsciously this person made the association and executed on high-level technique to stop and neutralize the threat. And the empowerment, the discipline, everything about the martial arts that we now are having pushed out through the UFC, it's going to be really interesting to watch the cascading effect of these principles like Bushido and hard work really start to translate to our next generation of children and youth. So I'm really excited for the future of the UFC. I truly believe in the next 20 to 30 years that this will be the biggest sport on earth, that it will overtake soccer because soccer is boring and fighting isn't. Even the most boring 15-minute snooze smudge fest is still more exciting than a guy kicking a soccer ball up and down the field. So thank you for your time. Thank you for watching. I am Mr. 3. This is Mr. 3 MMA. I'm going to do my best to be my best every week to post something interesting. Hopefully you enjoy it. And if you don't, cool too. Have a great day.